stood up and postured myself in a very prideful way, you kind of lose focus. Sometimes you have to step outside of yourself. And how can we go refocus our attention on how we can serve others in this time?
And so I've just been praying, Lord, how do we see the people that really need the most help, the people that need groceries, the people that need encouragement? And so I thought of Kemp.
If there's a way for us to engage or to be involved, man, we want to do that. And I think that we've been transparent in some of the different events and activities that we've done, not only from the platform of Love Akron, but what we've been able to do now in partnership with other organizations.
Don't do anything else today. Just make sure that you love Akron.
Make sure that you love Akron.
Whatever you do today, wherever you go today, just make sure that you love Akron.
And early on, one of the things I said to Coach Kemp was, I'm like, I'm an employee of Love Akron. We're going to do this black and white conversation. Conversation versus collision. I said, Coach, if we're going to do this, and then we're going to get to that point where we're just rocking and singing Kumbaya, I was like, then can I respectfully ask that you count me out? Because one, if this is not a forever challenge or assignment, if this is not something that we're going to do forever, I just don't want to do it. I want to do something that's going to truly make impact. So I think it's important for us to make note of the fact that this is a commitment from Love Akron forever.
Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to Connection versus Collision. Where do we go from here? I am Coach Ken Boyd, Executive Director of Love Akron. And tonight I don't have my running mate with me, Mr. Michael Irby, President of 100 Black Men Akron Chapter. He's out for this evening, but I know he's here in spirit, and so I'm going to do the best I can to step in and to welcome you into our encounter on this evening. And what a great encounter that we have, because we're really focusing on Mental Health Awareness Month. That's what May is. And so our guests tonight are some heavy hitters in their passion to really drive home the importance of raising the awareness of a mental health disorder, but also reducing the stigma that is associated with mental health. And so before we jump into it, I just want to let you know a little thing about what we're doing. And I'm so happy to be doing this with our proud partner, 100 Black Men of Akron Chapter. Man, we've been running together on Connection versus Collision now for a long time, starting all the way back in 2020. And so we're just honored to be in this partnership with them and really help to love Akron together. Again, we want to go from being a noun to a verb. And this is what we're doing here. And so want to let you know that we here at Love Akron, we have mental health and wellness initiative that we're doing. One is we're partnering with Red Oak Behavioral Health and doing mental health first aid trainings. And understand, we want to do this in faith-based sectors, the education sector, and also the public sector. So if you want to know more about mental health first aid training and what that can look like for you and your organization, hey, please visit our website at www.loveakron.org. And if you scroll to the bottom, there's a little information form that you can fill out. All you got to do is put your name, put your number, email address, and also your organization or business. And also we are piloting the grief recovery method here. And it's about how we deal with grief and how we can do that really effectively. And grief is not just a loss of a loved one, but it's any sudden change within your life that results from even a loss of hope, of dreams, or expectations. And if you want to know more about the grief recovery method and how you can get involved, and if you need that service, again, visit our website, www.loveakron.org, and we have an information sheet that you can fill out to where, man, we can get you hooked up with some of those services so you can move forward, okay? And we want to give a special thanks to the Knight Foundation and their sponsorship for allowing us to put on these encounters. And again, we're excited about who we're going to encounter with tonight. And a special thanks to all the foundations, the PEGS Foundation, GAR Foundation, for their support and helping us to raise the awareness and to meet the needs of those struggling with a mental health since COVID-19 happened. And so this is what we talk about when we mean, where do we go from here, right? Let's look back on 2020. 2020, we saw what? The COVID-19 pandemic. We saw social injustice and racial unrest. And now we're on the side of the vaccine, whether the vaccine, not the vaccine, mask or no mask. Now that we're on the other side of this, we still have to ask the question, as a community, as Greater Akron, where do we go from here? And so we invite you in on helping us to answer that question along with the guests that we're going to have. So again, thank you so much as well to the Adam Board of Summit County, to the Change Direction Committee, along with SUMA Hospital, with their direct support with helping us to equip specialists to conduct the grief recovery method, both virtually and in person. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Now listen, you're not going to be hearing from me. I got to bring along my man, my brother, Mr. Lash is going to come on. He's going to lead and guide us through this encounter on this evening. Mr. Lash, how you doing this evening?
I am doing wonderful. How are you, brother?
Man, I'm doing so well. Mr. Lash, it seems like we ain't been together in like years, man.
It's been a few months. It's been a few months.
But at the same time, having that time off and kind of recalibrate and bring together really great encounters for our audience, I think is very powerful. So, hey, I'm not going to talk anymore, man. I'm going to pass the baton to you. And thank you so much for once again leading us through a really great discussion and conversation.
Well, I appreciate that. And before you leave, I want to actually ask you about the mental health initiatives that Love Akron has going on and things that you may have coming up, since we're talking about mental health.
Hey, I appreciate that, man. You know, we have already done about 3 to 4 mental health first aid trainings already now in the year of 2021 that we're really proud of. We've trained probably over 60 people already. our goal is to probably hit that 200 mark, because here's what we know, Mr. Lash, is that if we can help to bring about awareness and train people over the signs of suffering, the result of the outcome of that is, man, we're going to help to reduce stigma. And so nobody will be afraid to receive any type of mental health services, because, man, we want to train, we want to bring awareness, and we want to equip people the best we can. And when we talk about mental health first aid training, what we're talking about, Mr. Lash, is that we're just training lay people like myself, like you,
sure.
Right? We're not asking anybody to diagnose for a mental health disorder. It's kind of like, if you will, physical CPR, right? So if we take CPR, I might be able to put a splint on, maybe a broken bone, but I'm not doing the surgery. So we triage people to the professionals that they need in order to really help them to overcome and also to cope with their mental health disorder. And the next thing that we're doing is directly, we believe, affecting not just the African-American community, even though I think it's really hitting there hard, but how do we deal with grief? And so for many of us, we have probably suppressed it more than we ever know.
Absolutely.
And so we have right now 15 trained specialists that are ready to go into the community here in Akron. And we want to train at least 60 people. And that is the outcome that we want. And right now we have 11 people going through the advanced training. And so through our advanced training, Mr. Lash, we remove barriers from anybody receiving this service, because they can just simply do it online if people don't feel comfortable meeting together one-on-one and in person.
That's great. That's great. And thank you, Kemp, for sharing that information. I think that's vital information for those throughout our community who are dealing with various issues surrounding mental health. So I want to thank you and Love Akron. I want to thank 100 Black Men for hosting such an important program around such an important topic within our community. So thank you very much. And I'm excited about tonight's guest. So thank you very much, Kemp. And looking forward to, first of all, I want to just welcome everyone who has come out tonight. My name is Euphron C. Lash. I'm the Vice President of Administration for 100 Black Men, and we're very honored to be here and privileged to be once again with Love Akron in this collaborative effort. And this month is Mental Health Month. So we're actually talking about such an important topic throughout our community, such as mental health. And we have some phenomenal guests this evening that I think are going to share just a wealth of information that I'm excited to bring to you. Our first guest this evening is going to be Miss Megan Kleindon. And Megan is the president and CEO of Red Oak Behavioral Health, and she's a partner. They're a partner of Love Akron. And this year alone, Love Akron and Red Oak together have trained over 50 lay leaders in 2021 through Youth MHFA, the Youth Mental Health First Aid. Megan, welcome this evening to this dialogue, and we are very excited to have you. Can you please just share a little bit about yourself and your organization before we get into this important topic?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's wonderful to be here. So I am Megan Kleindon. I'm the president and CEO of Red Oak Behavioral Health. Red Oak Behavioral Health is a local community mental health center. We're located actually in the Highland Square neighborhood here in Akron. We provide mental health services, both treatment services, as well as prevention, intervention, screening, and recovery support services, mostly for children. So children are absolutely our primary population. We do so in two ways. So we have an outpatient center that's located in Highland Square where we can provide psychiatric services and therapy services for both children and adults. And then we also provide an embedded mental health treatment model. So we actually bring therapists and case managers into school buildings. And so we serve 92 school buildings across 15 school districts, providing embedded mental health treatment services to about 4,500 kids and adults each year.
That's wonderful information, Megan. And, over the past year, as you heard Kemp share with us earlier, mental health has been such an important topic to discuss just because of the pandemic, the racial unrest. We all went through an election, and depending on, it doesn't matter which side you were on, there were stressors associated with that. How did your organization deal with those throughout the community, dealing with the various components of the last year, especially with the pandemic, as we are all going through and transitioning through that?
Yeah, it's not often that we as a community live through a collective trauma. And so you're absolutely right. We've not only lived through one collective trauma, we've lived through multiple. So the realities of experiencing as an entire community and as an entire nation, the impact of a global worldwide pandemic, the realities of living through the social and racial unrest and injustice that we've had to kind of navigate together as a community, the political landscape that has been part of our story have wreaked havoc, not only, frankly, on any individual population, but on those of us who are the helpers, right? So it's a pretty rare reality when your helpers are also part of the collective trauma that they're helping others to navigate through. So, it's been a really interesting dynamic for us as a mental health treatment provider to be focused not only on continuing to provide exceptional care to our clients, to our families, to those who need us in the community, but to also be paying really special attention to our staff to figure out what is we need to do to take care of those who are the caregivers, who are themselves trying to figure out how to work full time and to homeschool their children, and who are themselves trying to figure out how to navigate and keep their families safe in a world in which safety has become a big question mark. So I think for us, our model here at Red Oak Behavioral Health is really about meeting people where they are. So that's been our vision and our tagline as an organization is behavioral health care that meets you where you are, and recognizing that we are all in a space of vulnerability right now, and that we have to meet people in that space of vulnerability, acknowledge what is, and walk with people where they want to go and where they're ready to go at the pace, right? The speed of trust, as Kemp would say. We've got to walk with people at that same speed of trust in the journey. And be able to really recognize these are uncharted territories. We're living through times we've not had to do through before.
Absolutely. And what you just shared is so vitally important. What I'd like to kind of pivot off of is we've dealt with in your sharing, you mentioned children, and children are very special to me, and I'm sure to you as well. We talk about the youth component of mental illness or dealing with mental issues and mental health. Can you discuss how your organization goes about doing that and how you all have been able to kind of support the young people going through this past year?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's an excellent question. We serve children as young as 3. So children can engage in services with Red Oak, but at the age of 3 and then on through the lifespan. And what we're seeing is, folks' needs look different depending on their not just their age, although that certainly makes a difference, but the impact that COVID has had, the impact that racial injustice has had directly in their life. And so it looks and manifests really differently, which means the trauma is different from kid to kid and family to family. And it means the needs are going to be different from kid to kid and family to family. And so when it comes to providing care for our littlest kids, a lot of what we're doing right now is helping them to acknowledge that it's okay to not be okay. Right? That this space of feeling scared or uncertain, not understanding what's going on, having people with these masks covering their faces that don't make a lot of sense, so you can't read their faces well, that those things are scary and they're different, and it's okay to be scared by those things and to acknowledge feelings. And so for our littlest kids, just owning what those feelings are, talking about them and acknowledging and validating those experiences. As you get older, for kids, what they're concerned about, they're able to better articulate to you. And so those conversations are different, right? And so what they want to talk about is still going to involve acknowledging their feelings and where they're at, but they also are going to want to talk about some of those specific impacts in their life, because they may have had a family member who's had COVID and been hospitalized. They may have had somebody who's been hurt in a protest, or somebody who has been, had actions taken against them that were wrong. And so as they're navigating through those journeys, our job is to step into those spaces with them, give them a safe space to have those conversations, and to acknowledge what is it that they need to help them to feel safe again. How do we help them to feel that they've got the connections and the tools they need to be able to navigate and step forward? And it's one step at a time. And it's individualized to meet their needs.
Absolutely. I'm just really elated to hear you talk about the helping and supporting young people through some of their struggles, because a lot of times we take for granted that because they're young, that they don't have the same struggles that many of us adults may wrestle with, and that is such a special place for you and your organization to deal with. And I really appreciate you being here tonight. You shared some very, very important information, and I'm asking you to hold on, because
I'm going to there.
Our next guest, and we're going to bring you back to share again. Okay.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you. And at this time, we're going to actually bring in Dr. Ellington. And we're excited to have Dr. Ellington. Dr. Ellington is with the ADAM board here in Akron. He has an evidence-based practice coordinator and acting associate director of clinical services. So we're excited to have him with us. Good evening, Dr. Ellington. How are you?
Good evening. I'm hanging in there.
Great, man. It's great to see you, and thank you again for joining us for this important topic. Can you share just a little bit about your background and what you do in your career?
At the board, one of the things that I do is I'm the evidence-based practice coordinator and now the acting associate director of clinical services. So the evidence-based part is making sure that a lot of our agencies are actually practicing evidence-based, practices and helping fund initiatives to make sure that they are doing it to fidelity. So it trickles down to the clients and we see better outcomes for clients. So that's the one role I have. Then the other role is more of the associate director piece, which I'm managing a lot of our staff to make sure that they're delivering good services to our agencies, throughout the county. But also on the side, I'm also a psychologist, a practicing psychologist in my own private practice. So I keep my skills sharp.
I understand. And that's so important for the services that you all provide within your agency. And I'll kind of share the same question I shared with Megan with you. Over the last year, there's been just so many things going on that have been traumatic throughout the community. Can you talk about how you have assisted with that, with people throughout our community to cope with everything that's been going on?
Well, in the role of evidence-based practice coordinator at the board, one of the things that we helped roll out when the pandemic first started was making sure that a lot of our agencies had telehealth equipment and had the funds in which to purchase that equipment. So we rolled a lot of those funds out to agencies to make sure that everything was copacetic. We also helped when it came to a lot of our agencies to set it up and navigate how to set it up in an ethical way to, best, serve, the clients during a time where, a lot of the agencies, most of the agencies were not using telehealth as it is being used today. So we were able to, truly help with that as well. In my practice, helping clients, just cope with all the change has also been a big part of what I've been doing during this time.
Absolutely. That's great to hear. And, one of the things that we always hear, we hear about the myths surrounding mental health, or, the stigma of those who wrestle with mental health. Can you talk about that within your practice and what you've learned in your evidence-based training? How do we let the general public know that it's okay to go and talk to a therapist or go and seek counseling for the things that you're dealing with? Can you talk about that a little bit?
And believe it or not, I've been dealing with this throughout my entire career. I'm particularly working with a lot of the African American community of how important it is to, get mental health screenings, to, go to counseling, and that it's not a stigma to it. But at the same time, there is a stigma to it. So by talking about it and, and also being able to let people know that this is something that is normal and normalizing it, that, people have mental health issues and citing resources that they can go to, and even having, practitioners like myself who look like them, who can talk to them about it and really shed some light on what it is like, to deal with mental illness, not only within your family, within yourself, and dealing with stress, which is not necessarily a mental illness, but in this particular time, when we talk about the pandemic and everything else, a lot of people are dealing with a lot of stress and don't know what to do with it. So giving people resources that are in their community, that are easy to access, and at the same time, when they get to those resources, they're using, evidence-based practices to help guide these individuals through their troubling times, I think helps offset those myths, helps offset that, the only reason I would need to go to counseling is because I'm crazy or things are like really bad or something like that. And it's like, no, things can be, just out of your control and, and just you can't get a good handle on it. And it's a good reason to go see someone and then talk to somebody. I remember, it's funny, when I was in undergrad, I was I knew I was going to study psychology, but, I was real green, and one of the things is that I remember this professor saying, you can go to counseling and it'll just be like $5, and I was like, what? I always thought it was a lot of money to go. And so I would never even think to go myself. I was studying it, but I wouldn't think to, go myself because I thought it was, not something that, it's like rich people do counseling, but he was able to show to me like, no, with a copay, it may only be like $5, $20, or you can do sliding scale. And so I don't want that to be a myth or a barrier as well to, go to counseling. Your insurance may cover it, Medicaid may cover it. And then here at the ADM board, we also, help individuals who are indigent receive services that they need at our various agencies.
Absolutely. And you touched upon something that was so vitally important and kind of hit me. You mentioned the African American community, and we have had trauma for time immemorial. But I'm looking at the last 365, or a little more than 365 days, and some of the things that have gone on in our society, things that we've seen in our community, things we've had to witness on TV in other cities, things we've had to hear some of our political leaders share. And it's been traumatic. It's been very stressful. And to your point about it being a myth and things like that, can you speak to how a lot of African Americans don't seek mental health services, and they kind of shun away from it because that would be an acknowledgement that there may be a problem? So can you kind of speak to that, just sharing how we've been getting through and how mental health services can help them get through some of the rough patches in life?
Well, I think a lot of the African American community has a tendency to lean on, the churches and, faith-based organizations, which is, wonderful. But to take that step to then go to, a counselor seems like, it's almost like it's too much. It's too much. And so one of the things I would say, particularly in this time, it's hard to figure out, sometimes that you actually, need the help that you need. But if you find yourself having issues, particularly in three categories, I would say: interpersonal issues, like you're getting into more, arguments or, with people, or people are getting on your nerves more. And you can imagine during this time that happening, but it's more than normal. And if our intrapersonal, like how you feel about yourself. So if you're watching TV programs and, and you're seeing the unrest and you're feeling something negative about yourself, or feeling, that you as a person or as a human, as an African American, is somehow less than, or, you don't like yourself as a result. Or, it's interfering with your occupation, or your, whether it be your job, or, also your education, school, your grades are going down if you're in school. If you see these problems, it's time to, go get some help. Right. And that is, I think, what, just as simple as those. If you're seeing a problem in one of those three areas or multiple areas, it's time to, get the help. And I think a lot of individuals, particularly African Americans, don't know when it's time. It's like, they see counseling as, I don't want to be seen as crazy and all this other stuff. And instead of that's the place I go get help. So it's like it's the last resort. It's like when things get really bad. And I'm telling you, if you do it early, things don't have to get really bad. Things can actually improve a lot quicker, and so your dip, doesn't, have to land all the way down, to the earth. It can, start to accelerate.
Absolutely. That's so good to know. We represent 100 Black men, and I can say, being a Black male myself, that in talking to other Black males, that's one of the last things Black males will want to do is to go and seek mental health services because of how people would look at them or perceive them. Hey man, there might be something wrong with me. So a lot, at least the ones I know, that will be the last resort that they see. Can you share anything that might encourage Black men specifically to go and seek mental health services for themselves or their family?
Well, one of the big things I'm going to say, and I'm probably, I got to recognize that I'm also a Black man. So it's, sometimes it's easier to come, and see someone who looks like me, in these, situations. But I would say, that is not necessarily, a bad thing. So trying to find, a counselor that you feel you can relate to. And by the way, the research says that, it doesn't always have to be an African-American counselor, but trust takes a little bit longer to build up if it's not, but at the same time, you can have that same connection, with another counselor as well. So if you can build a rapport with a counselor, then, you can have a great and wonderful experience. And I have worked with African-American men who have sat on my couch, believe it or not, I got a couch, who have sat on my couch and said to me, they never thought that they would be talking to a counselor. But once they got there and once they were able to be free and talk about their issues in a way that they were not judged or in a way that they, could just be free to talk about it. And at the same time, not, have, anyone, calling them anything for doing it or anything, and it be in a nice, safe space where it's confidential and they can just get out what they had to get out. Every single one of, and I'm telling you, every single one of them have benefited from that and have told me they have enjoyed, those conversations. And you get a good counselor I got to pump the evidence-based practices as well. So you get that good therapeutic rapport, and using evidence-based practices as well, they're going to move that client, through that therapy process to get them where they need to get to and what they're actually looking for in treatment.
Dr. Ellington, thank you for sharing this information. I think it's so vitally important that we share throughout our community and abroad the importance of mental health services and seeking mental health services if you should so need them. And I appreciate you being here to share your expertise with us. I hope you can hang out with us, and we're going to bring you back in toward the tail end of the program. But thank you again for hanging out with us tonight.
Take care.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to actually, our next guest is Mr. Anthony Ingram. He's the Chief Probation Officer with the Akron Municipal Court, and we're excited to actually have him this evening. He's going to come on and share with us some of the things that he has going on within his career. So Anthony, would you please come and share with us? How are you this evening, Tony?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for joining us this evening. And you have a very important job in our community. This is the other side of mental health that we like to discuss. Can you share with us and our audience, some of the aspects and components of your job?
Sure. So I serve as the Chief Probation Officer for the Akron Municipal Court, but I have a unique opportunity to actually work closely with people who are suffering from mental illness. Just a little bit quickly about me. I've been dealing with folks who are suffering from mental illness for now about 30 years. I started my career in mental health and brought that with me to the criminal justice system. Because one of the things we learned a couple decades ago was utilizing our jails as a de facto mental health system was not working for individuals, nor was it working for the community. So what we've done is really partner with the ADM board, Dr. Ellington's group, some of the private mental health providers to provide comprehensive mental health services for those who suffer from severe mental illness, making sure that we are making that the focus and not just looking at it from a criminal justice perspective.
Absolutely. That's vitally important, because we see so many individuals that enter into your line of work and have to deal with judges, probation officers, police officers, etc. And your line of work is so vitally important in our community. Can you talk about recidivism and mental health, and what can the community overall do to bring the levels of recidivism down?
So I'm gonna echo some of what Dr. Ellington was saying as well. We can't be afraid to reach out and ask for help. There are some very talented people in this community, and one of the focuses that I have within the probation department and outside is dealing with this issue of trauma, dealing with historical trauma, and just dealing with the trauma oftentimes of growing up in the inner city, the violence that we see, domestic violence, gun violence. Those things are causing significant trauma throughout the community, and without seeking the services that the ADM board or even private psychiatrists and counselors are providing, that trauma begins to manifest itself physically. And if I can just quickly, I know you asked Dr. Ellington the question as to, how do we get folks more involved in mental health counseling? So one of the things that I try and do, especially as it relates to trauma, is to tie it into the physical problems that really sort of manifest themselves, and especially with African American men. We have the highest rates of high blood pressure. We have the highest rates of diabetes. We have the highest rates of many of the disorders that really are killing us. And a lot of that is because of unresolved trauma that we haven't dealt with. We haven't really dealt with our mental health in a meaningful way. And failing to do so, it will manifest itself physically.
You really touched on some very deep things when you say dealing with it when it comes to your health, the correlation to your health, diabetes, high blood pressure. I was just talking to some of my friends and colleagues about that just a few days ago, and the correlation, some of the stress that builds up and some of the illnesses that are caused as a result. That's so important what you just said, and I hope that there are many people out there that hear that message and how crucial it is to resolve a lot of that, a lot of what's going on inside, so it doesn't manifest into those issues later in life. But saying as though you're in the corrections arena, can you talk about one of the big things we've been dealing with in our community are law enforcement? I was talking earlier about the George Floyd issue and unfortunately, some of the other murders that have happened since then. And there are a lot of people that are being incarcerated. Can you talk about that? How can we as a community assist in that area? Because a lot of times we feel helpless. What can we do? Can you, from an expert vantage point, can you share with us what ways can we assist in this area, if at all?
Honestly, one is to continue to challenge us in the criminal justice system to look for best practices, as Dr. Ellington talked about. We have best practices in corrections and criminal justice as well. And it isn't always just incarcerating folks. It is getting at the core of what's happening with an individual and providing them the resources to help deal with that need. I tell my staff, and I focus, or try and get my staff to focus on this. Everyone who comes to see us isn't a bad person. There's some bad things that have happened in their life. And we have to have that ability. And I think Dr. Ellington talked about it a little bit. We have to see them as human first. We have to see them as a person first. Understand that they are someone's loved one. They are someone's family member. And to treat them with the same courtesy and respect that we would ask someone to do of us. If we can start there and begin to try and identify issues and what problems are, just simply, quite frankly, being afraid. If we come into this idea of being afraid, then we're never going to really help someone in that sense. And we've got to do a better job of that in the criminal justice system and changing how we think from this sort of criminality mentality to first look at the human and let's think about how we can, one, help them meet their needs, and two, how do we keep them out of our system? That is always my goal, is to provide as much assistance as I can. But I tell everyone who I see, this is the last time I want to see you in this setting. I'm happy to see you out in the community. If you see me, wave, say hello, tell me how great you're doing and how your life has got back on track. But that has to be our goal, to get people out of our system, not keep them in.
Absolutely. Mr. Ingram, I mean, you said some very powerful things, some very useful, shared some very useful tools, and I'm hoping that those who are joining us in our audience and those who may view this or listen to this later on can glean from it. I want to thank you for being here this evening. We're going to actually bring on our next guest. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Terrance Shelton, who is pretty notable throughout the Akron community. Mr. Shelton, are you there?
Yes, I am. How you doing there, Brother Lash?
I am doing well, Brother Shelton. It's good to see you, man.
Good to be
First of all, would you mind sharing with our audience what you do and some of your background?
Okay, no problem. Thank you. And well, first of all, I'm an Akron native, product of Akron Public Schools, Krause, West Junior High School, South High School, graduate of Grambling State University in Louisiana, where I received a bachelor's in industrial technology, finished here with my master's in education as a community counselor at the University of Akron. Worked in corporate America, worked at the university, private sector, regional, state level, retired but not. It seems like I always find stuff to do. Currently, I'm doing part-time work.
I seemingly have lost your sound. Can you hear me? Can't hear you. Your sound is still down. Okay. Well, what we'll do is while you work on your sound, I'm going to bring in. Can we bring in Megan and Dr. Ellington in? We'll try to bring. First of all, welcome back. We have to pivot here so that he can get his sound together. But I want to just again thank you both for being here. And when we talk about mental health, such a critical topic in our community, as professionals and working with the individuals that you work with on a daily basis, you know, kind of what I was sharing with Dr. Ellington, how can we encourage those throughout the community to seek the services necessary? Because a lot of people have been running away, avoiding, classic avoidance, running away from dealing with their issues and their problems. How can we, within this segment, encourage them to seek the services that they need?
Well, I can certainly start. So one of the things I would say that's helpful is the work that we're doing with Coach Boyd and with the team at Love Akron. So, our goal with mental health first aid is to build community capacity, to be able to help people across this community to understand what to look for when it comes to mental health needs, and to be able to engage in those conversations friend to friend, partner to partner, neighbor to neighbor, across their spectrum of influence personally and professionally. So I think the more that we are able to equip people to have those conversations, to talk about mental health, and to do so in a way that it's not me as a therapist or me as a mental health provider having that conversation with you to begin, but when that conversation happens with your friend, or that conversation happens with the pastor at your church, or that conversation happens with your neighbor or with somebody at your office, that door opens to be able to see that then not as a clinical failing or as something that, again, is wrong with me. There's not a diagnostic component to that. It's a conversation to say, oh gosh, yeah, maybe talking to somebody about this would be helpful. And it becomes a brother to brother, a sister to sister, a conversation that happens amongst a trusted partner in this process that I think allows that stigma to come back and to be reduced, which makes accessing services much easier. So I do think that work plays a part in the story in terms of helping people to start talking about this reality of mental health without feeling quite so stigmatized.
Sure. Can you piggyback off of what Megan said, Dr. Ellington, as far as the
real quick, I'll add to it, and with initiatives and training such as, I think you had mentioned it earlier, mental health first aid, and giving individuals a better understanding, the average Joe, a better understanding of how to use the language and how to talk to individuals, their friends and family about it in a more informed way is extremely helpful. And then our initiatives like Changing Direction, which again tries to, give just the average Joe and the layman, a way, to understand, what to look for and signs to see, if there's a problem with, individuals, that may need services and they don't know that they need it, or at the same time may reject those services. At least it gives them a platform in which, to speak from and in talking in an informed manner. I think that those type of things are very, very helpful. And that's why we have done a lot of training too in the faith-based community, because sometimes that's where people end up, talking about those issues, or they get seen, in, church and everything. And it could be a very casual conversation, but a casual conversation that is, behind it is this education that they learn through training and
Sure.
the like.
Sure. And if you don't mind, I want to bring Mr. Shelton back. His sound is back now. I'd like him to join the conversation. We can keep Megan and Dr. Ellington a part of the conversation. I'd like to bring Terrance in. Terrance, would you mind adding to what you just heard, the dialogue you just heard, if you don't mind? Right. Can you hear? Yeah, I think he's still having some issues. But to Megan and Dr. Ellington, when Mr. Shelton joins us, we'll try to get his answer. But what about those individuals who say, I'm just going to go to church? I'm just going to go to, their Bible study or whatever have you, and they feel that that's just enough. Now, I'm a believer, but what about those individuals who feel as though that's just enough? That they don't need anything else, because through their faith, not saying it can't happen, but through their faith, their mental issues, that addresses their mental health. What would you say to that particular perspective?
One of the things that we have the benefit, I guess, of doing is helping a lot of pastors change up that language, because I think if they hear from their pastor, okay, God is great and good, but there's some other things that you need, and there's some other services that may be helpful. And so we have, worked with the faith-based community for that exact reason, because there are individuals who just think it is enough. I'll just pray it away and it'll be fine, and go and take it to heart. Like, I'm not praying enough, and that's why I'm dealing with this.
Sure.
And so to have someone of their faith talk to them about it and say why it's necessary and helpful is more than I could do, just, talking to somebody, about it, so we have spent some time, and there's, Amy Wade actually runs the, it's a little, her role has changed, but at the same time, she used to run the faith-based coalition, and help out with that to make sure that a lot of, some of the dollars that we pump out in the trainings that we pump out would help, that community so the messages that they deliver would, make sure it gets to the individuals who need it the most.
Sure.
And I would echo that, Dr. Ellington. I mean, I really feel like, one, we need to recognize that not everybody needs therapy, right? So we know, right, on average, 1 in 5 people are going to have a mental health need at any given point in time that's going to likely necessitate some sort of therapeutic intervention. But lots of us, a faith-based intervention is what we need. So we need to acknowledge that and flow into that as well and pour into that. That's a really appropriate intervention for many people. So if you are engaged in a faith community, that's a great place to start. There is trust, there's relationship, there's connection in that space. And I think Dr. Ellington is exactly right. What our job as then mental health professionals needs to be is to make sure that those faith leaders have the tools they need to know when it's at a place where it's not appropriate for them to try and triage and lead any longer, but where they need to hand the baton off to somebody who can help to take their lead. And when there's a partnership and when there's a feeling that that faith leader is in tandem and in connection with that community mental health provider, that private practitioner, that person that they're going to move that person to in terms of care, it's a much easier transition for that process to happen than it is if you're just going to throw some phone numbers at a person and say, hey, man, you should really go get some help. Just call one of these people when you get a chance. Because we know that's a really uncomfortable place for lots of us.
Sure. And if we can bring in all of our guests at this time, we're actually drawing close to the end. Mr. Shelton, can you hear me at this time? I don't think you can. Mr. Ingram, can you hear me? Are you there?
I'm here. Yes, I can hear you.
Do you have anything to kind of add to what you heard Dr. Ellington and Megan discuss? Do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
I do. And I want to reiterate what they mentioned in terms of partnerships, especially around Change Direction. Been a part of the Change Direction Faith Committee from the beginning, and part of that, and this will go back to some of the other questions. The faith community provides a vital role, not just to the mental health community, it provides a vital role to us in criminal justice as well. And the beauty of that group is a new partnership that helps all of us to come at it from a different way. Lots of times in the professional setting, whether it be in mental health or whether it be in criminal justice, we don't really want to talk about people's faith. That's not something that we're always comfortable doing and making it a part of meaningful treatment. What I think we've been able to do with Change Direction is bring the faith community to the table and have a vital role in helping that overall healing for that individual, whether it be mental health or whether it be in the criminal justice system as well. So an amazing group. Those who are interested, please contact Coach Kemp. We are always looking for folks to be a part of that group. So yes, absolutely.
I want to thank all of you for joining, and I want to thank even Mr. Terrance Shelton, who we had some technical difficulties, but we want to thank him as well. So Mrs. Megan Kleindon, Dr. Aaron Ellington, Mr. Tony Ingram, Mr. Terrance Shelton, we thank you for being here, sharing some of your expertise. There's a multitude of years of expertise just on this broadcast tonight. We thank you for coming to share with us. I'm hoping that those who may be viewing now or maybe viewing in the future may glean something that will persuade them to go and seek the services that they need. So thank you both, and thank you all for joining us, and I hope that our paths cross again in the future.
Likewise. Thank you.
At this time, we're going to bring Coach Boyd. Before we close out, we've had such a great time in listening to some of the experts share some of the reasons why, some of the issues surrounding mental health. And since Mental Health Month, we wanted to actually kind of showcase some experts and just talk about mental health so that those who may see this, whether you're watching now or whether you're going to see this in the future, if you're dealing with something, maybe something that was said tonight may persuade you to go and seek some assistance or some help. There's no stigma around seeking the services of a mental health professional. We actually encourage it. But at this time, we're going to ask for Coach Kemp Boyd to come back to the screen. Coach Kemp, how are you, sir?
Man, I'm doing well, man. And, man, Mr. Lash, thank you again, man, for just leading and guiding us through that discussion and conversation, man. You do a great job with navigating all of the things that happen that are expected and sometimes the unexpected things, man. So thank you so much, man.
Hey, thank you. And I think that this discussion or this topic, we didn't do it enough justice. We tried to touch on it, but there's just so much to glean from this, and there's so much more that could be said. But thank you again for showcasing this in Mental Health Month. Thank you.
Oh man, no problem at all. Now, hey, I want to give a special shout out to Coach Michael Irby, because he actually went through the mental health first aid training, and we're looking to send through all the 100 Black men through the mental health first aid training, because they are working as well with our young people in the community and their mentoring program that they're doing, not just with students at the elementary age or middle school, even high school age, but also on the University of Akron campus. So 100 Black men, thank you again so much for your partnership. Thank you for your efforts and how you are loving Akron. And I also want to give a great big shout out to Amy Wade and her team and the Change Direction Committee for helping us to spearhead this initiative as far as the mental health and wellness, but also the grief recovery method, and the effort to train specialists to lead us into beginning the process of healing. It is so important, especially right now at this time. So we just say, hey, Amy, thank you. Thank you so much for trusting us and believing us with this. And also a big shout out to Tracy Carter and everybody over at SUMA. And again, man, Mr. Lash he does a great job. And again, he serves with 100 Black men, but also he has a day job where he is on Mayor Horgan's cabinet, and he does a great job there helping to love Akron from that perspective. So we're just excited for you being with us today, and we thank you so much for you continuing to tune in. And like Mr. Lash said, we're going to continue to talk about this. So this coming Wednesday on our Love Akron Live, we're actually going to be talking to Doug Livingston, and we're going to be bringing back Tony Ingram and also Michael Montgomery, we're going to talk about the article that came out, I want to say it was a few weeks ago now, within the Akron Beacon Journal, talking about suicide within the African-American community and how it's been on the rise in 2020. So you don't want to miss that, because there's some really great things that are going on. But two, I want to talk to Doug Livingston, who is the reporter who actually did and led the charge of that article. And I just want to know, hey man, what was your why? Why did he write about that? And then what's the outcome from it? So really excited about that. Tune in with us this Thursday for a very special community awareness Love Akron Live at 1:30 p.m. And so again, thank you so much for being with us. If you have or want more information, or if you're interested in the grief recovery method process, you can go to our website at www.loveakron.org. Scroll down, and there's a little information sheet that you need to fill out. I think it's only like maybe 4 things. It's your name, it's your email address, and are you interested in grief recovery method? And also, if you are interested in seeking mental health first aid training, you individually or for your organization, again, this is for lay people. It's nothing to diagnose you. But like Megan said, if we can get more people trained in mental health training, the awareness goes up, but the stigma hopefully can come down. Again, we'll have something on the front page of our website that you can go to and fill out and say, hey, I'm interested in being mental health first aid trained and certified. And we would love to do that because that is a part of our initiatives, and that's a part of how we're loving Akron. So again, special thanks to all of our team, the board at Love Akron, my board chair, Dave Beasley. Thanks so much, Dave, for just, man, your mentorship, your love just as a brother. Thank you to my sidekick, Lori Porter, to our team here, Allison, Excellence Marketing, just everybody, and especially to you, because, man, you help us to do what we do really, really well. And so until next time, it's like we always say, if you don't do anything else, make sure that you love Akron. Everybody take care.
Much greater need in Akron that I can't see.
I could eventually, kind of, stood up and postured myself in a very prideful way. You kind of lose focus. Sometimes you have to step outside of yourself. And how can we go refocus our attention on how we can serve others in this time?
And so I've just been praying, Lord, how do we see the people that really need the most help? The people that need groceries, the people that need encouragement. And so I thought of Kemp.
If there's a way for us to engage or to be involved, man, we want to do that. And I think that we've been transparent in some of the different events and activities that we've done, not only from the platform of Love Akron, but what we've been able to do now in partnership with other organizations.
Don't do anything else today. Just make sure that you love Akron.
Make sure that you love Akron.
Whatever you do today, wherever you go today, just make sure that you love Akron.
And early on, one of the things I said to Coach Kemp was, I'm like, I'm an employee of Love Akron. We're going to do this black and white conversation. Conversation versus collision. I said, Coach, if we're going to do this, and then we're going to get to that point where we're just rocking and singing Kumbaya, I was like, then can I respectfully ask that you count me out? Because one, if this is not a forever challenge or assignment, if this is not something that we're going to do forever, I just don't want to do it. I want to do something that's going to truly make impact. So I think it's important for us to make note of the fact that this is a commitment from Love Akron forever.